The following article is entitled Self-Interest. It is taken from a historically black-owned newspaper, taken from the Library of Congress. And this had no authorship, nor do I remember exact newspaper I took it from, but it is from the 19th century. So please keep that in mind as I read the article. And please keep the questions in mind as we'll revisit them as soon as I'm finished reading the short article. So the title is Self-Interest. In common with many others, we thought that the unfavorable conditions from which all colored persons were suffering, regardless of other conditions, would have the effect of drawing us closer together, the better to overcome many obstacles in our way. We find ourselves mistaken in this impression. The average colored man, in spite of all vehement assertions and nosy declarations about race, etc., cares very little about matters that concern race, except insofar as he is the race. The manifestation of this same disposition differs according to the educational advantages of different classes of our people, but the end and aim is the same, namely self-interest. We do not seem to have sufficiently advanced to understand that the best interest of the individual is promoted by the general elevation of the whole. We labor under the impression that if we can just get there, which means quotation marks, get money, the little matter of off color would easily be overcome and then could buy everything. Learning, character, honor, self-respect, good breeding, etc. Money cannot buy as we seem to believe it can. And in our anxiety to acquire this money, we frequently become indifferent as to how. The evolution of lofty ideas and elevated sentiments require greater moral preparations than we seem to possess at this stage in our history. Sentimentally, while very pretty, counts for little amongst us against self-interest. We believe that our present condition, money, is not the most needful of our many wants, until we become convinced that no colored man can separate himself from the race, and that he must be content to labor for the moral and intellectual elevation of the race as the surest way of lifting up himself and creating opportunities for their children. So long will our ill-directed efforts fail of producing results we so anxiously desire. Here's the thing. I just finished reading Self-Interest, right? So I wanted you to know that that was the end of it. It was a very short and to the point article. And you see elements of this today in our culture. The questions are back on the screen for a little bit to give you time to pause and go back and re-listen if you'd like. Don't take this the wrong way, okay? And if you are of a different ethnic group, please don't come at me replete with stereotypes about people, because we know if every race of people, someone within that race is going to fit those stereotypes. And if you come with me where it's been reported this, I don't care about your receipts right now. I'm getting to grassroots humanity here. So I'm addressing the black community because other communities see this as obvious, particularly the foundational black American community right now. I watch a few YouTube videos and you have some very intellectual people. I won't name your channels, but some of you I'm sub to and some I just listen to. But for the ones I'm sub to, and I frequently leave messages of encouragement and things, and I'm in awe of your research, you know I'm talking about you. So I don't need to say your name. The problem with FBA self-interest versus the self-interest of other races of groups and other different groups, regardless of race or gender, is that we get here on this internet and get out in the streets in real life and show our disunity before the whole world. Not to say that there was no past injustice associated with that, but we get off on these public beefs with each other, going back and forth like children instead of building our own future. Despite the fact that I don't know the authorship of Self-Interest, the reason this particularly bothers me is because it was ingrained in me growing up as a black child in the United States, a descendant of slaves, that black people prior to the civil rights movement and back were unified. And yet the research I'm doing in the Library of Congress, as it would, is revealing nuance. Like when you see that quote from Booker T. Washington in a video I did earlier this year, when he gave this warning 100 years ago and people in our community still missed it. Making a grievance about things and people are going to get paid off your grievance. And guess what? They're indifferent to you despite coming from your community when they can't make money off of you. And they go live in gated communities and pretend not to know you. And they know how to put up such a good act and a smile. They've built their next generation of wealth at the expense of the collective. Don't get me wrong, individually, some of y'all are out here showing your butts off and you do it to yourself. The problem is that, in my opinion, we're not building, according to some YouTubers that I listen to, a lot of economic self-interest groups that will help us build more wealth because we're too busy infighting. And I have to say we because I'm an FBA. Unlike some other readings that I might have done, I wanted to get into self-interest because this challenged the notion that in the 19th century, past slavery, we were all a united front. We were not. Maybe united in the outrage of lynchings, maybe united in the outrage of intimidation at the ballot when men went to vote, because let's be honest, this is the 19th century, women weren't voting like that. So don't come at me, you don't get to revise history because it doesn't fit your narrative. We're united when something drastic happens, when Tulsa happened, when, say in Canada, Africville happened. You can't say that we're always united when it matters, because if it mattered, we'd be trying to build generational wealth, not ensure that it's delayed gratification and spent and go right back into the hands of so-called people who controlled it all the time. And this is not a racial argument. I'm talking in general. This just confirms something I started to suspect for years, that the stuff that was fed to me as a child was not the entire truth. That's my commentary. Put down in the comments what you think based on the questions I've put up. I'm sure I'm going to get ire for this, but I can't be the only person that noticed this. Other groups get together, look out for their own interest from an economic standpoint, while FBAs are drowning. And some of this drowning is self-inflicted. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think.